Hello and welcome back to the Intuitive Health Studio podcast. My name is Kelsey. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we are talking about the main event of the menstrual cycle. So if you haven't listened to the first two episodes in the series, each episode I'm walking you through each of the phases of the menstrual cycle. We have 4 different phases and we're up to phase 3. So if you haven't listened to those, I definitely recommend you go listen to those so you get a nice picture of the regulation or how the hormones fluctuate throughout the cycle. So just a little disclaimer, all the information shared on this episode is for educational purposes only. So before you change anything to your diet or regime, making sure that you consult with a healthcare practitioner beforehand. So let's get started and stuck into ovulation. Before I go any further, you might hear just some noises in the background. That is just my dog playing fetch or having the zoomies. I'm not sure which one. But yeah, if you hear like rattling, that's what that is. So ovulation / peak. This is what I'm calling it, just because there's some nuances to this particular phase of the cycle. Ovulation in itself ranges from person to person. Not everyone has the same ovulation date, just like the whole entirety of the cycle. Like when we're looking at the menstrual cycle, it has to be individual to that person. The hormone fluctuations and the changes in the hormones is different from person to person. So generally speaking, I'm just working off a 28-day cycle, but just keep that in mind that everyone is different. So really when we're looking at ovulation or peak, this is around the middle of the cycle. So if we're looking at a 28-day cycle, it could be anywhere between day 13 and day 17, depending on what's going on, depending on what your body is going through, if you're under more stress levels, if there's something going on with your hormones, if there's something going on with your ovaries and the communication. So there's so many different nuances to this. So what I'm going to be sharing today is just really general information. So take everything with that in mind, and I'll give you really general science as well, just so you have an understanding about what is going on, because I find it fascinating. And this whole process is super, super fascinating to me. And obviously, if you're listening to this, you are very intrigued on everything that happens in the menstrual cycle as well. So ovulation / peak. Why I call it ovulation / peak is some people don't actually ovulate. So this phase of the cycle can be just the peak of the hormones. So having that delineation, some people don't ovulate every month, and some people just have this peak of hormones depending on whatever circumstance they're under. So during this phase, this is generally within the middle-ish of the cycle. So in the follicular phase, we were talking about how the hormone levels were starting to rise in response to our brain telling our ovaries that it's safe to start this process. If you've been under stress or your body's under stress in whatever way, and there's this disconnection between this HPO axis, you'll hear me talking about this a lot on this podcast, but the hypothalamus pituitary ovarian axis, if there's any disconnection between these two, this is what can affect this ovulation process and the hormone fluctuations as well. Obviously, there's things locally in the ovaries and the uterus and the fallopian tubes that can also affect this. But generally speaking, when our brain tells our ovaries that it's safe to ovulate, that is when we start to have this increase of our hormones. So when ovulation happens, this is when the peak of the hormones happen. This is when our body or our brain tells our ovaries, yes, it's time to release that egg. And this happens from the surge of luteinizing hormone. So when this surge happens, the egg is released from its sac and travels down to the fallopian tubes for the potential to be fertilized. So during this phase as well, during this peak, we also have a heightened, or our estrogen, testosterone, luteinizing hormone also reach its highest point of the cycle. So why this is important is because during this phase, we really want to support ovulation to occur, but also prepare our body for the luteal phase if our egg wasn't fertilized, if it wasn't fertilized for pregnancy or conception. So during this phase, because we have these peaks of our hormones, you may feel that you have an increase of energy. You might feel strong and powerful. This is a really good time to harness that energy, to have those more intense workouts, to do the running, to really focus on the well-being of our body. And during this time, you may also find that you have increased libido. And this is because the increase of estrogen and testosterone is really supporting this. So during this phase, when we have this increase of energy, we really want to support our body through our nutrition. Now, some key nutrients that we can focus on include antioxidants, vitamin B6, folate, and choline. These nutrients in particular help with our quality, ovulation process, the hormone fluctuations, helping with those hormone increase at particular times, but they also support with the liver detoxification to prevent estrogen excess in the luteal phase. So we'll get into that in part 4 in the luteal phase, because there's a lot that can go on in the luteal phase. But in ovulation and peak, we really want to support our body in preparation for that as well. So some key foods that have these nutrients include berries. We love our berries. They can be frozen. Add them to your overnight oats. Add them to your slices. Just get really creative with it. But the more that you can eat berries, the better. Dark leafy greens, again, another one that I love and I chuck in everything. Like, honestly, if I'm making a spag bowl, I put spinach in there. If I'm making a curry, I put spinach in there. If I'm making a smoothie, I put spinach in there. Like, the more you can put spinach in places, the better. Dark chocolate, we love our dark chocolate, green tea, rocket, broccoli, kale, peas, kidney beans. As you can see, some of these nutrients are quite bitter, and that bitterness helps with this liver detoxification. So when we're looking at our liver and liver detoxification going into our luteal phase, we'll get more into it, but I'll give you a little snapshot. We want to help with this liver detoxification so the estrogen doesn't recirculate into the body. And it's liver detoxification, but also gut health as well. They go hand in hand. So during this phase as well, like I mentioned, you may be exercising more. You might be lifting more weights. You might be doing vinyasa yoga or hot Pilates or high intensity interval training or running. So we need to make sure that you're eating enough. If you are not eating enough or you're not fueling your body correctly, this could put extra strain in the luteal phase. So we need to make sure that we're having enough carbohydrates and protein for this energy expenditure, but also supporting our body for the muscle and tissue repair to make sure that we're really, really fueling and nourishing our body the best way possible. For this as well, like overall, ovulation is an important time of the menstrual cycle. It is the main event. So if we're not ovulating, we're not producing progesterone in the amount that we need to support our luteal phase. So that is why ovulation is so important, and really supporting and nourishing our body is important in this whole ovulation process. Some key things to note around ovulation: if you are looking to conceive or you're starting to get more awareness around your menstrual cycle or wanting to develop more, awareness around your body, ovulation can have no signs. Like, some people just don't have signs. It can be really hard to tell if you've ovulated or not. There are ovulation strips, But keep in mind, if you do have an LH, so luteinizing hormone excess or high luteinizing hormone all the time, it can it can be a false negative. And this is usually seen in PCOS. If you have high luteinizing hormone, it can give you a false positive on ovulation. So keep that in mind. But other things that may come up include an egg white like discharge, not very stringy or slippery like raw egg whites, and basal body temperature. So if you track your temperature every single day throughout the whole entire cycle, and you do it from cycle to cycle, you will see this fluctuation of temperature, and that aligns with your hormones. So when you have this really increased level of your temperature, that can show you when you've ovulated, or where you have this peak of progesterone from this corpus luteum. So once everything is in its tracks, this can really help with delineating if I've ovulated, if you haven't. There's also blood tests that you can do to see what your progesterone levels are. There's a certain number that your progesterone needs to be over at a certain point of the cycle to define if you've ovulated or not. So when we're looking at ovulation, it can be a very good time overall. You might feel really good. If you are experiencing any pain of any sort, any spotting or any bleeding around this point of the cycle, please go and visit your healthcare professional to get further investigations, just to make sure nothing else is going on. So to round up, ovulation, an important part of the menstrual cycle, the main event. You'll feel energized, strong, powerful. If you are wanting to dive a little bit deeper, if you are ready to build that self-awareness, get in tune with your body, I am developing a community called the Intuitive Health Collective, where I'll be sharing different resources, webinars, tools, and practices to really support you in getting to know your body, in supporting your health overall. So if you're interested, I'll leave the link in the show notes to register your interest. This will be a membership-based community, so I'll have a founder's membership price, and then as content is added, the membership price will increase. But if you sign up from the get-go, you are locked in on that price. Put your name on the wait list, and I'll be in contact with you as soon as possible once updates are released. Part 4 will be coming out soon, and we'll be talking about the luteal phase. And of course, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I really hope you found it educational and enjoyable, and making sure that you follow me on Instagram, Intuitive Health Studio, or you can visit my website, intuitivehealthstudio.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to talking to you in the next episode.